My name is Jonathan Stoner, and welcome to the webinar. Today, we're going to be covering our detailed estimating software called WinEst. Trimble has several different pieces of software under its umbrella. As a matter of fact, I think there's around 60 or 65 different pieces of software that Trimble manages and owns. And I'm just going to take you through a couple slides here initially. And then we'll jump right into the software. So it's a little bit different type of presentation where we give a live overview of the software. A lot of companies will do like a recording, and while that would be easier on me and my team, we prefer to try and handle questions live. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to ask those anytime during the presentation. If you lose a connection or lose your audio, just try and get it back. There's not much I can do to help you along the way, unfortunately. But again, if you have any questions at all, put those in the chat box, in the question box, and I'll see that when it comes in. Also, when we conclude the webinar, there'll be a survey that you'll receive. It basically just asks you what you liked most about the presentation and what didn't add as much value for you. We'll take that, and hopefully that will help us improve our presentations for the future. Okay, so let's carry on here. As I mentioned, Trimble has a lot of different pieces of software under their umbrella. WinEst is the software we're going to be talking about today, and that's kind of, if you were to think of this in terms of, of estimate, in the case of estimating, it's detailed estimating. Means that we're looking at kind of a micro level. We're getting into the nuts and bolts of our pricing and our buildups and our markups and things like that. We have another piece of software that works hand in hand with WinEst. It's called ModelLogix, and that's more of a macro level software where it really looks at estimating at a much higher level. It looks at historical data, so your historical estimates or projects that are completed. And you use that to then create conceptual estimates. So I'll have a webinar on that next week if you'd like to join me for that. We also have project management software like Project Site, eBuilder, Viewpoint, which is also an accounting application as well. We have MEP and civil software, lots and lots of various different types of software. This little graphic here, I'll just explain how this works. As you can see, we put WinEst right in the middle, as most estimating applications find themselves. They sit right in the middle of your workflow. So whether we're starting with the estimate or we start elsewhere, like say we start out to the left here in models, with ModelLogix we can create a conceptual cost model. With ModelLogix, and we can push that directly into WinEst. Or in our Vehicle Office software, we could do 2D and 3D takeoff, and we can push quantities into WinEst. So it still goes into WinEst. And then out here to the right, you can actually produce schedules out of WinEst. So we have API integration out to Microsoft Project and Primavera P6. And project management software, this would be another push out. You could receive data in, of course, but for the most part, people that are creating budgets out to their project management software and accounting, things like that, that arrow goes this way. Okay, so I just leave it as project management because we can really push to any project management software on the market. Okay, and then of course we work with Microsoft products like Word and Excel, and I'll show that to you in the presentation. Just a little blurb here about our professional services. Our professional services team does a needs analysis and then plans out how they're going to deploy and then offer ongoing support. So whether you are a current customer or you are looking for a new application, our services team is dedicated to the estimating software. They don't, so Trimble has those 60 different pieces of software. In the estimating side of things, our support team only does WinEst and ModelLogix. They only handle the estimating side. So they're very, very committed to supporting just through that application. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the software now. I'm going to introduce the concept of navigation. So the way we navigate through the system, it's a Windows-based application. I should have noted that at the beginning. But the three main views that we're going to go through are the takeoff view, the estimate sheet view, and the totals page view. Okay, so I'll walk you through each of those three views and what they're for. I'll talk a little bit about the estimate information that we fill in on every project. You know, even if you do a project by hand, if you have a manila folder, you write the name of the project on there. So that's estimate information. So we always handle estimate information, and WinEst gives you lots of options for what to put in there, how much data you want to have in there, and what you want to report out. There's lots of toolbars that we can adjust and configure however we want, and then there's like right-click menus. Okay, so let's take a look at the software. And so I'll introduce concepts as I go through. I'll introduce the concept by going into the PowerPoint presentation, then I'll come into the software and show it to you. Okay, so when we take a look at this here, you're seeing just a plain spreadsheet, right? So it's just a list of items, quantities, and costs, things like that. Okay, so that's to give you the comfort of, you know, looking at a spreadsheet. You know, we're accustomed to building things in Excel, working within a grid of some kind. So our spreadsheet is very familiar to us. And then we have this estimate information area here, which allows for us to put in the project name, who's putting the project together. If I work within multiple currencies, I could build up base currency, say US dollar, and then I could report it out in the Canadian dollar, the Mexican dollar, or whatever it might be. That's completely up to you. And if you work within other currencies, that could be really important. You could use different types of estimates that you're putting together. So in my case, I put budgetary, detail, fixed fee, preliminary type categories, and then the status. You know, is it approved? Is it, you know, going forward? Is it an addendum? I could put all kinds of things in there that I want. And then I've got start date, duration, due date and time. You've got these tables here. So you have an overall labor and equipment rate table that you can use that will handle all of your rates. Now, you can have your rates just stored inside of your database. And those could be, let's say you only do open shop work. So you're only dealing with your own rates that you've sat down with the accounting team, and this is what we're going to have for a laborer. So we're going to have for a carpenter and that sort of thing. But if you bid on public work and you get into prevailing wages and stuff like that, you might want to use those same people, but then put the prevailing wages in. Do you want to switch those out, or do you want to have a completely separate table? You just switch tables and it switches all the rates for you. So that's what these rate tables will allow you to do, switch from one set of rates versus another. You have an overall estimate note. Whoops, that popped up on the other screen. And so I could put the details about the project here, any of the notes that I want to have there. And if I want to have that go into a proposal, that's going to be really good information to have there. Okay, so that's the Inst Info. So the item takeoff view that you're looking at here, your spreadsheet that I'm scrolling up and down on, is kind of your starting point. It's as I pull in items from my database, they just filter down into the spreadsheet. There's no it's only organized by when I brought items or assemblies into the spreadsheet. The only other thing that I would say, you know, you've got columns here that I can move around. They're not locked in place. I can also remove them, and it doesn't break any formulas or anything like that in here. I only show what I want to see initially in this view, in the item takeoff view. It's really good for templates, which I'll show here in a little bit. Now, when I come over to the estimate sheet view, this is where you spend a lot of your time, because I can slice and dice the estimate any way I want. I've got all these filter buttons here on my toolbar that allow me to organize the estimate any way I want. So if I go into labor, now it's only going to show me items that have labor cost in them. If I go to materials, it's going to only show me items that have material cost in them. Now, that doesn't mean that an item only has labor cost or material cost. You can have both in the same item. You can have labor, material, equipment, subcontractor cost all in one item if you wanted to. So you can have any combination of whatever you want there. Okay, equipment cost, subcontractor cost. If you want to break it down by some specific division set, like 16 division CSI, 48 division master format, and then unit format if you ever get into that. There's lots of different options on your toolbar. Okay, then you have the totals page view, which is where you set up all of your markups. So we'll get into this in more detail a little bit later, but you have net, gross, bonds, and taxes. And then you also have alternates. So this view also has the ability to filter and show the information in different ways. So I could show this in a more tabular view where I'm seeing my cost categories broken out across the top. I have an alternates view, which shows me my base bid, a job site trailer that I want to use, a flagpole site feature, a portion of the base bid I broke out separately, broken down into my alternates. And I could see that in more of a tabular view as well. So these are all things that you might not understand right at the moment, but I will get into more detail here with this in just a minute. Now, we also have right-click menus that are contextual. What does contextual mean? It means that wherever I have my mouse, if I right-click on the toolbar here, it gives me options, a menu for the toolbar. If I right-click on a column, it gives me a menu for the column, or on the spreadsheet, a menu for the spreadsheet, or on the row, it gives me a menu for the row. So it's contextual. It only gives me a menu that applies to directly what I right-clicked on, where my mouse was. Okay, so that's how that works. Okay, so let's introduce the next concept here. We're going to talk about the item takeoff view. I'm going to show you how we create a template, and then we'll talk about how we actually start from nothing and we just create an estimate from scratch. I'll add some items and assemblies, and I may go through and quantify some stuff. I would love to be able to show you some takeoff in the system, but I want to make sure that we have enough time to go through all of the estimating, the core estimating practices first. So I will probably hold off on any 2D takeoff. We have multiple options when it comes to 2D takeoff. So I'll be happy to show that maybe near the end. Okay, so now let's take a look at this from more of a blank sheet standpoint. So if I just go up here and hit new estimate, it shows me a blank spreadsheet. But if let's say I was going to build an office building, or I've been asked to bid on an office building, and I've already built one for these guys before. We work with this owner all the time. I could just go up here, click File, and choose Merge, and find that office building that I've already done. I built it back in 2018. I want to use that as the basis for this estimate. So I can go here to Merge, and just pull in just what I need. Right? I just need the items, the markups. Maybe I need work breakdown structures if they would apply, but maybe I'll just leave everything else go. So I can clear out everything else here, purge out any deleted items, and hit OK. It will now pull in all of the items and assemblies from that previous estimate, and now I've got a great starting point. I can go through and I can delete whatever I don't need for the next project. It makes life so much easier if you've got a template to work off of. Of course, we can also build an estimate from scratch. So again, if I go up here and click New, I can. Before I move on to that, let me come back to that estimate here. So I can save this template anywhere I want. You know, if we're used to working within Excel, we're used to going up and hitting File, Save As. And we can save this file anywhere we want, right? So I could save this as est1 or estimate 1 and save it there on my computer, right? So I could save this file anywhere I want. And it would bring me, if I was to just double click on that file on my computer, just like in Excel, it would open up that file right to where I left off. Okay, so that gives you hopefully a little bit more comfort and peace of mind concerning working with a system that's maybe a little bit, has a little bit more power behind it than an Excel sheet. Okay, so if I come back here to our blank spreadsheet, the first thing I want to do is just go up here and click Add. So when I click Add, it pulls up this listing of items. So if this doesn't make any sense, just know that you've got these categories and subcategories underneath of them. And then what's listed underneath are the items that fit within those categories. Okay, so if I go into woods and plastics, I go to rough carpentry, and I go to 2x4s, it's going to show me all of the 2x4s that I have in the database. Now these are all material items, but I could also create an item that's based on linear feet that has labor and material tied to it. Pretty easy to do. So I could easily do that. Let me just show you. So if I wanted to have 10 footers pulled in, I'm using those all maybe as base plates. I could pull this into the estimate. Let's say that I've got 15 of those, and I'm going to go in here. I know that this has only got material in it right now. I could say that I can fasten in, cut and fasten 2 10-footers. Let's see, that's hours per each. I want to do 2 per, each per hour. So I'm doing 2, and so for 15 it gives me 7.5 hours. And then I could just plug in a rate, or because I have a labor crew, or I have a labor database, I can click choose and go and find the crew that I want to use there. Or I could say I'm just going to use a labor for that, and he's $15. Then it gives me a total price. So I hit accept and close, and now I've got labor and material costs captured within an item. Okay, so it's pretty easy for me to manipulate things if I need to add a little bit additional cost. Rather than adding this item twice, one for material and one for labor, I could just have them both in the same. And now if I go over to the estimate sheet view and I look at labor, there's my 2x4. I go to material, there's my 2x4. I can adjust cost here for material. I can adjust cost here for, and productivity for labor. Okay, so that's bringing an item in from the database. Let's say that I don't have the item that I'm looking for in my database. I can go up here and click unique. And let's say I want to build, I want to build an office space. All right, and so it's going to have a takeoff formula of count. Eaches, and we're going to put that we can do. We've got these different office spaces, and there's say 15 of those, and we do 0.25 of those in a let's see, hours per unit. We do a quarter of an office space in an hour. So in 4 hours, we're going to be able to get this knocked out. So if I choose a crew, I can go ahead and attach that here if I want to. I'll choose a carpenter. Okay, so now I've got 2 carpenter crew and my unit price. Yeah, it's all going to work out. So, and then I've also got some materials in here as well, and the materials add up to about $2,000. Okay, and I'm going to add 5% waste. Okay, and then as far as pieces of equipment, I might need a drywall lift and things like that. And so I'm going to say that I'm going to match the 0.5 productivity and put a rate of, let's see, that's still hours, each per hour. There we go. And I'm going to put a rate of $50. Now that's probably pretty steep. So that might be, let's say $25 an hour adds up to whatever the daily rate's going to be, right? So now I've got this total cost of $22.90 per item, and I can go in and I could say I've got 10 spaces that I'm doing. right? And so all the math works out. I've got $22,900. Okay, so that's me just creating something from scratch. It doesn't exist in a database or anything like that. Now, let's talk a little bit about adding an assembly from the database. If I go up here and toggle to assemblies, an assembly allows for me to pull in multiple items all related to the same thing, all related to the same category all at one time. So rather than picking and choosing individual items as I go along, let's say I go to wall framing, and I want to do an interior stud wall with drywall. It's going to pull up this kind of Q&A process. So I've got a top and bottom plate of a 2x4. I've got stud size. We'll do 8 footers. Now we'll do 92 and 5/8. We'll do wall height of 8 to 12 feet. So that's just kind of my production. Insulation type, we'll do R11. And we're going to do drywall on both sides. And we'll do 1/2 inch drywall. And the finish type will be light texture finish, smooth wall finish. All right. And then the base type. Oh, this is if I use like a cove base or something like that. So I'll just leave that off. I'd rather have that as a separate line item for my finishes rather than part of my wall. So I'll hit accept here, and it pulls that in, and I'll hit accept here, and it pulls in all of these items all at one time. Now I can go over here, and this is set up to calculate in square feet as my unit price, but I could easily switch that over to linear feet if I want to. But it's asking me, you know, what's my wall length? So say I've got 100 feet of wall. My height is 8 feet. My stud spacing is 16 on center. Bottom plate count is 1. Top plate is 2. Let's say I've got a double top plate. And rows of fire blocking will say 1. Number of corners, say I've got 3, and we'll hit add quantity, and it will populate this entire assembly all at one time. And now a per square foot price is what I've got showing here. And let's see. So, you know, I'm able to see there's a $3.01 for my unit cost for this item. Okay, so I'm able to see that all of that right here. That's an assembly. It pulls in all those items all at one time. I don't miss anything because I've answered all the questions, and now I can go through and I can verify each of these items. These items are being pulled in, their labor, their material, their equipment, or whatever I needed for that. Okay, so that's probably enough on the item takeoff view. Let's talk a little bit about the estimate sheet view. We're going to talk about the different filters and the ways we sort through the spreadsheet. We've already talked a lot about the cost categories: labor, material, equipment, subcontractors. But we'll talk about work breakdown structures. We'll talk about the difference between detailed estimating and unit price estimating, as well as integrations to other tools. We'll talk about quality control within the estimate sheet view, which includes incomplete takeoffs and duplicated items. We've already talked a little bit about CSI and master format, but we'll address it again, as well as unit format and alternates. So let's jump in, and we'll talk through the estimate sheet view. The estimate sheet view allows for us to use filters. So if I were to go to my labor filter, if I go to the filters drop down here and edit this view that we're looking at right now, you'll see that it's sorted by division, major, minor. Those are the first 3 levels. Those are the 3 levels of CSI, the 16 division breakdown. So, but if I wanted to, I could also say that I wanted to insert an additional coding structure. I wanted to see everything kind of sorted by labor crews. That might be abbreviated. labor mix. So I could choose my labor mix, and we'll just say yes. We don't need all the totals and stuff. I just want to see, you know, what it is that I'm using. What's the labor mix name? And I want them all to be sorted together underneath of these various categories that I already have set here. Right, so I could go ahead and pull this in. And I'm going to move this down because I want it to be at the very bottom. Okay, so now I'm seeing, like if I roll this up and I go into site work, you'll see that underneath of earthwork, I've got, on my labor, I've got an operator to do the rough grading using a D3 dozer. And then I'm using this labor to do hand trim curbs, fine grade sidewalks, hand trim continuous footings, and fine grade by hand for slab on grade. So that's all right there underneath of earthwork. There's that crew that's being used over and over and over again. And then if I had added totals, I'd be able to see how many hours and what's the overall productivity that's being used for all of that work. Now imagine if I also put in like a work breakdown structure and I lumped everything together and then put the crews underneath of that. I'd be able to see what activities or how much labor is being attributed to specific activities. How much time would it take us to build an office building? How much time would it take us to get to the subgrade for our sidewalks, curbs, pavement, and slabs? You know, so you know, can we roll all of that up? Is it easy for us to do that today? And WinEst, as you can see, I can just add a simple filter and see it quite easily. And I can save this and use it over and over and over again. And any button I want to save, I can save it here on the toolbar quickly and easily. I'm going to back that out. Even though I actually kind of like that to be in there, I'm going to maybe run through that and change it and make it a little bit different. Now, labor-wise, in my filters, this is showing me all the items that have labor cost attributed to them. Now, if I go through, let me come down to something like, I don't know, I guess concrete will be fine. And we go to, say, concrete finishing. We've got this 3,000 linear feet of curb and gutter. So we're finishing and curing. And we're using a cement finisher, whatever that means, right? So that's a laborer or a carpenter, or, you know, that's a guy that's a skilled trade for sure. I've got the production here. You can see that's labor production and labor productivity. And I can switch the productivity here to units per hour, and it might make a little bit more sense. So based on this individual that's doing this finishing here, doing the finish and cure. So he's spraying, curing on, he's using his hand trowel, and or he's running a broom finish over things or whatever it might be. This is the guy for 3,000 feet, and we're going to get 135 hours out of that. Now that's just one guy. Now I could change this, and I could say that I actually want this to be a couple people. I don't know what's going on there. Let's see. I want this to be 2 people. All right, so I'm going to hit accept and close, and it's going to switch things up. It's still going to give me 135 hours total, but now it's being divided up, and it's 67 hours that they're going to get this done in. Well, I need them to get this done. This is kind of ridiculous. We're going to say that they're going to get that done within an 8-hour day. Okay, so now my productivity shoots up, and I'm doing 375 linear feet per hour. Now, if I don't think in this in terms of, you know, I need this to get done in a day, and I think more in terms of how much can I get done in an hour with 2 people, I might say I do 400. And so when I adjust it to 400, I can see that it's going to take me 7.5 hours to do, which it works out perfect because that'll allow for a lunch break. So anyway, you get the point that I can work the numbers both ways, and equipment functions exactly the same way. I've got a piece of equipment here. I've got productivity that I'm getting out of the equipment. Of course, I want to have waste factors and things like that in there so that, you know, because I do have non-productive time with equipment for sure, and I want to have that in there as well. So you could put equipment factors, you could put labor factors in, and that sort of thing to make sure that you're covered, because trying to match your equipment time with your labor time is a waste of money. Okay, there's a lot of people that leave equipment running on a job site and things like that, but that's beside the point. The main point is that you have equipment that is underutilized. Everybody does. Okay, it's just the way of the world. So, but if I look here in my site work, I've got everything is hour per unit, so I'll switch that over, and we'll make it all units per hour. And my backfill foundation with a backhoe is 25 cubic yards an hour. I can see that I've got a total number of hours of 253. I could say that I'm going to do a little bit higher rate because it's nice and flat. Where I'm working, I've got dry weather ahead of me, and I'm going to work with that. Okay, so I can work this both ways, just like before. And so I could say I want to get this done in 150 hours, and so it's going to back calculate my productivity. Okay, and then materials is going to be a little bit different. Obviously, we've got all the job site materials in here. So I've got this crushed rock here. Oops, didn't do that. Crushed rock here, it's $7.80. I probably also have a subcontractor trucking fee in a separate category. I might want to combine those into my overall material cost, but I can see that my price here is $7.80. Now I could go through and find everywhere that there's a crushed rock 1/4 inch, or here locally, that would be called 304 limestone, probably being used under concrete walks and stuff like that, instead of this crushed rock, you know, this generically named term. And so I can hit Control F and find crushed rock. And there it is. There's one, $7.80. And I could go through and find each one of those, go back up to the top of the spreadsheet. There's one. And I could go ahead and I can adjust that to $8. Okay, find the next one. Okay, all right, found it. The only reason it didn't find that previous one is because I had already moved down. That one's $8. So we've all struggled with this, right? So we've all struggled with trying to find the items, making sure we don't miss any pricing and that sort of thing. But here's what's going to make life a little bit easier. We use what is called a material price link. It's a table that will keep all of our material prices in one place. So I adjust it in one place, and it will find all the items that are tied to the table. So if I go in here into this column here called material price link, next to in the row here for crushed rock, double click, I'll have this table here that comes up, and I can hit add here, and I'm going to say crushed rock. Let's abbreviate a little bit. 1/4 inch stone, crushed rock 1/4 inch, and we'll say that that is $9. Okay, so I'm going to close out, and I'm going to assign that right here. And I could do the same thing. I could do the Control F if I want to, or I can hit Control C and Control V anywhere that I see it, and you'll see that it immediately changes my pricing. Okay, and then I can keep this table as a button on my toolbar. So I click on it and adjust my pricing right here. I got a price, everything hauled in, $10.50. Close it out, and it will adjust all those prices all at one time to $10.50. Okay, so that will make life a whole lot easier than trying to figure out where those individual items are and updating the price. I can do it all at one time. Okay, and I could even summarize all of those costs together to make life a little bit easier and give me a total amount of stone that I've got on the job as well. Okay, so that is materials. Subcontractor cost is just kind of, you know, put your price in and tag who you chose for the subcontractor pricing. Okay, there's a little bit more to it than that. Like here, I'll give you one example where if I choose a sub, let's say, so here's those 3 instances of the crushed rock, right? They're all $4.51. I can go in here and I could create a bid list. And let's just say that I go ahead and add ABC, ABC trucking, right? And we'll just put the unit price in of $450. Oh, wait. I don't want to do that. Sorry. There we go. This is what I wanted to do. ABC, and we'll plug it in at 450 and hit OK. Okay, now I can go in and I can choose ABC, and I could apply them all across there. Okay, now it adopted the price that I had in there, so I could go ahead and adjust that there. Okay, there we go. So now what's going to happen here is you see this unassigned. If I refresh the view, it will show me everything that I've assigned to the ABC trucking. Okay, now one thing I did by accident was assigned the wrong guy. And I deleted the price. Okay, so anyway, you get the point that I can assign cost to subcontractors and see kind of what their rolled up value is going to be. Okay, now why that's there, I have no idea. I'll refresh here again. There we go. So anyway, you can kind of see how this all works, and I can there we go, delete. That's what I wanted. Now I can refresh my view and put the 450 in there. And now I'll be able to see what the total unit cost is there. So sorry, I got myself lost in the train of thought there, but you could see all of those are assigned, and I could see who I assigned cost to. I could see what the total unit prices are. Now, would I have this many instances of crushed rock? Yeah, actually, I probably would. And you know, I could put in a takeoff quantity here. I could select all these, right click, and do a selection statistics. It'll tell me that I have 3460. So I could put that right here, 3460, right? And I could say that that's tons. And I could see that's my total unit price of 450. I've got a total price of 15,569, which is the total here. And then I could say, I want to change that to $5. Yes, it will change all of these to $5. And there you go. Okay, so I could do things like that. I can adjust it all right there. Okay, so that gives us a breakdown of individual costs and an overall cost that person is charging for like a lump sum or something like that. Okay, so that's how labor, material, equipment, and subs work. Now I'm running out of time, so I'm going to go through because our database is broken down in CSI and master format. So let me click add here, just refresh your memory. You'll see that when I go into my items, I toggle between CSI and master format. So I'm able to see the items in whichever format that I understand best. That's default out of the box, what we offer in our databases. So I could see CSI. Oh, I'm sorry. Was there a question? If you have a question, you can put it in the question box. And I'll address it. If you want to plug your question in there, I'll be happy to take a look at it. So because the database is structured with CSI and master format, that allows for me to sort my estimates by CSI and master format as well. Okay. Then we also have the ability to sort by work breakdown structures. So I can go into one of these tables and I can create a list of locations. I can put quantities in here so I can get unit prices instead of all the detailed pricing that I've already had. So I could put in that I've got 2,700 square yards, and I've got 10,000 linear feet, and I've got 100,000. Or let's say my building footprint is 50,000 square feet, but my overall gross total square footage of the complex is 100,000, right? So that's why that would be different. And then landscaping and that sort of thing, I might say one lump sum, roof total cost, I might say how many square it is, canopy, all that stuff. So I could close that out, go to my filters, and look for one that's based on location. And so now I'm going to have a location details, and I'll collapse this down, and you're going to see, you know, these are all my items associated with those different locations, right? But then if I roll them all up, I'm going to see here's the quantities that I plugged in there, and there's the total unit prices based on those quantities. Okay, so that's how that works, and that's how we can get to this point too, where instead of just a list, I could also create a hierarchy and have list within lists. So it can get pretty complicated if you're into that sort of thing. If you need to create multiple lists or categories of structure to sort your data by. Now, in the Takeoff view, one thing I forgot to mention was that I have this ability to use this item status column to tag items as I go through. Let's say I don't have pricing for this or this or this. Okay, and so I could say missing pricing, right? So I could put that here and here and there. Okay, so I could put the same message on all of them. I could put all kinds of notes on these if I wanted to. Come over to my estimate sheet view, click on the alerts filter, and it will show me all of the items that I've tagged for review later, including those items that I've tagged that say that they're missing their pricing, or maybe I'm undervalued, or I'm missing pricing from a sub, or whatever it might be. Now let's say that I've resolved that, so I could remove all this messaging if I wanted to, and then I could go through, untag those, refresh my view, and they no longer meet the condition of being tagged in the estimate. I can also find items that are missing quantities or costs. So if I delete all these quantities out of these items here, click on incomplete takeoff, it will show me all of the items in my estimate that are missing quantities. And then it also shows me items that have quantities but have no cost. Okay, so you can set up special views called conditional views that look for criteria that you've established there. Okay, so if I undo pulling those quantities out and then click on the button again, they no longer meet the criteria and they go out of my view. Okay, so it's like a checkbox next to those items. Now here on this item here, I could say it's $1,000, refresh my view, and it no longer meets that criteria either. Okay, I have a question. On the materials view, when changing a material price for an item, is there an option that all similar items will also change at the same time? Imagine if you have, say, 100 of similar items, it will be a lengthy exercise to update the material price link. I think that's what you said. Let me see. Material price of an item one by one. So that's where that material price link would come into play. I would have a material price link established on that item so that when it gets brought in from the database, I just update it in one table, and it will update all 100 items at one time if they're all the same item. If they're different and they rely on different pricing, then you would create a material price link for all the things that are similar with each other, where I'm running into multiple instances of things. So that's how I would do that. Now, you also have the ability to go to materials here, and I can go to my view and summarize like items. And you'll see here I have 2 within the concrete foundations of the footing rebar. And I could go in and I've got a material quantity, I got a material price of $600, and I could say that it's $550. Oh, I can't change it at this level, but it's probably because I have a lock on it to some degree. But I can see all of them there. I can see what their unit prices are and that sort of thing. Okay. Now it might change if they're not if they are exactly the same. Yeah, they have different prices, so I can change them to be the same. But anyway, that would allow me to see how many of something I've got in my materials list. So I would probably rely heavily on the material price link as much as possible for that. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the markups. Okay, so we're going to go through markups, and I'll also jump over to reports as well. So we'll go through reports, and we have various types of reports that we can go through. You're very welcome. We'll talk about the reports out to Word and Excel, as well as our internal report writer. We'll talk about the comparison and variance reports, the custom reports that we can generate, and then we'll conclude from there. Okay, so let's jump over to our totals page, and I'll explain a little bit more about how these markups work. So if I click on the net here, this is my first type of markup, and it'll be right here in the this red area of markups. These are above the line markups. These get applied to the raw cost of your estimate. So if I go down here and click Add, I create a new markup. And I can do a percent. I can click on the drop down. I can also include a lump sum value. So say that I've got a shipping or a freight. I was an estimator for landscaping, and I would add up the total amount of weight and how many trees I'd be able to fit on truck trailers and things like that. And I would come up with some lump sum, or I would come up with a shipping or something like that for freight. So coming up with that was kind of outside of on a piece of paper, and then I would either put that in as a line as an individual line item, or I would put it in as a markup at the end. So here I would have that as an option. So I could put in, say, 3.5%, and then I can apply this to a specific section of the estimate. If I do a percent, it's just going to apply 3.5% to whatever I choose here. So if I go, say, to table 2, and I want to put this all within the site work, all the items that are in site work will receive a 3.5% markup. But if I was to switch it over to a lump sum and I say it's $35,000, it's going to spread $35,000 evenly across all the items that are contained within the site work table. Okay, so that's the difference between lump sum and percent and spreading cost. And then I can also restrict how the markup is being applied by restricting it to one of the cost categories. So if I wanted to only apply this to my subcontractors working within site work and all the items in there, it would spread the $35,000 across all the items in site work and only in the subcontractor cost category. So it would inflate all of their pricing by whatever amount, however many items are in there, it's going to spread that $35,000 over top of them. And then we also have alternates. Alternates are like the WBS tables, except they can be turned on and off in an estimate. So I can consider different options, which you can see here. I've got 2 different size job site trailers. I've got a flagpole site feature that they've asked me to bid, which has a concrete foundation and a sleeve and and the pole itself, and and the contraption that pulls the flag up and down, and the tie-off fixture as well. There's a lot to a flagpole when you really think about it. And then a value engineering compared to a portion of my base bid. So I can break out any number of things that I want, and I can have them turned on or off in the estimate. So, and where it comes into play with the markup, I can choose to only apply this 35,000 within the site work to the subcontractor and only apply it to the base estimate. I don't want it to inflate any of the other options that I'm considering if it has anything to do with site work and has a subcontractor cost. So I'm going to hit OK. It's only going to apply it to the base bid. And here it is. Here's my new markup, added $35,000, which added 1% to the estimate. Okay. So now, as we look at this, we also have gross markups. Gross markups are my blue markups that you see here. And you can see I can divide them up with subtotals in between. So I've got overhead, subtotal, and profit underneath of that. The reason you would put a subtotal in between those is so that overhead and profit are not calculated off of the same amount, which is what we see all the time. When I've done Excel estimating, I've had owners, bosses, that have had 65% or 45% or 55% or whatever it was, and they would just say, that's my overhead and profit. It was just a catch-all. It wasn't a true mathematical problem that they had figured out. They just figured that that was close enough to get their unit prices to be in good shape and also make a little bit of profit as well. They didn't really know where their numbers were. So in this case, within WinEst, we can calculate our overhead on the subtotal up above. So after I've added all my net markups, like labor burden and materials markups and fees and insurance and stuff like that, now I want to go ahead and add the overhead, my operating cost, to the estimate. So I've got 10% there, and then I've got a subtotal underneath of that so that I will get a different total for the profit to be generated. I want my profit to be calculated off of everything added together, my overhead, my operating cost, plus the cost to build this project. So then I'll get my profit. So it'll be a higher value. So you can see there my overhead is 459 and my profit is 505. Okay. And then bonds are set up where we could set up different stair steps. And when your estimate reaches different thresholds, it will apply a different bond rate that you've established there. So your bonding agent would tell you what your bond rate is based on different values, how much work you have on hand, and all that sort of thing. And when you need a specific amount, then you could forego this, not use it, and then just use a gross markup and plug the value in that they give you, right? And then you have tax table. You could create as many different taxes in this table as you want. So if you are working across multiple states, multiple counties, cities, they all charge different taxes. Now, state sales tax doesn't change a whole lot, but if you go to a different state, or if you work within a different province, if you're in Canada, sometimes they charge double tax or tax on top of a tax. We can do all of that right here within this table. It's set up just a little bit differently than the other markups. You can see I can apply this tax to gross markups, which would be down here, the net cost, which would be this subtotal right there, or to a previous tax markup. So I could add a tax of a tax, which happens up in Canada. Okay, so we've got all of that handled right there. As I mentioned earlier, I can review this information in multiple ways. So here I've got a 16 division breakdown. I've got my markups listed underneath for my base estimate. You'll notice that there's in line item 20 is that new markup of $35,000. If I come down here to the job site trailer, you'll notice that that markup does not exist because it's not included in that alternate. It's only included in the base bid. Okay, so that's how the markups with alternates work. Okay, so I can look at this in a multitude of ways here. All right, so let's talk a little bit more. Let's talk about reporting. I have 5 minutes left here, and then we'll wrap it up. I should be wrapping up now, but I want to show you the reporting. So we'll come here, and I will click on my Excel button. The Excel button launches Excel as you would expect. and it will show me the exact same thing that I was reviewing in WinEst. So the reports match up. There might be a few columns that I had hidden, which will be revealed in Excel, and show me all the values that you saw there. Now, these are just numbers here, so there's no formulas tied to it or anything like that. This would be a quick and easy report that you could generate for anybody that doesn't have WinEst. Okay, if you wanted to kick it out to Excel, shoot it off to them, and have them review it, you could send them a labor breakdown and say, hey, what do you think about this labor? You could send them a materials breakdown. You could send out an Excel sheet out to your material suppliers or something like that, and that'd be really, really helpful to be able to get that cost back in Excel. Okay, that is a quick report that you can generate out to Excel. You also have the ability to use the internal report writer for what you're seeing on the screen. So I can go in and you can create as many of these different style managers that you want, and it will change the options, change the landscape, portrait, the color scheme, the what details you want to show there and that sort of thing. So I've got my company logo showing on this one. It shows me exactly what I was viewing in WinEst. So what you see within WinEst is what you're going to get out of your report. So that some people call that WYSIWYG. Okay. You also have the ability to generate a proposal from the system. And so from the system, I have a Word document that's tied back to WinEst. So this document is just sitting out on my computer. Everything that's written in black here, that is all within the boilerplate document. Everything that's in blue is all information that came straight from WinEst. Okay, so I've got my value coming over from WinEst. I've got who I'm bidding to, all was in the est info. The name of the project all came from WinEst as well. We also have a reports drop down here. I can see every action that was taken against the estimate in an audit trail details report. This will tell me who made changes to what. So if you have more than, say you have more than 2 people working for your company and you're all working on estimates together, that's great for one. And for 2, I'll be able to go through and check and see what changes have been made to the estimate. So this will tell me who made, at what date and what time, the user's name, and what actions they've taken against the items. If they've changed labor costs, they've changed the name to something, everything will show up. Okay, and you can, so if I click on this, you can set it for a specific date and time. So if I just wanted to see all the changes that have happened today, I'll go ahead and run this report. And we'll preview it here. And you'll see I've made all kinds of changes to this estimate today. Underneath of the crushed rock, you'll see that I added a material price link. It switched the price from $7.79 to $9, then from $9 to $10.50. And then here, because that item is also has equipment, you'll see I changed it from none to ABC Trucking. And then I also changed the pricing from $451 to $450. Change the subs total. You can see all of that right there. I'm logged in as the administrator, so my name's not showing up there, but you get the point. Okay, so the Audit Details report gives you a lot of insight into what's going on with your estimate. You also have the ability to run a comparison and variance report. The comparison report will compare 2 estimates side by side. So say I have an addendum that, and so I've revised my estimate, and so I've saved my estimate as base bid, and then I'll say base bid plus addendum 1, and then maybe I date stamp them or whatever. I can compare those 2 estimates side by side, and it will tell me here was what was in estimate 1, but was not in estimate 2. Here's what was in 2, but not in 1. And here's what's the same in both of those estimates, but the pricing was different. So to just kind of give you an analysis of your 2 versions of your estimate. And then your variance report, your estimate variance report, is going to give you a side-by-side comparison and a cost difference between the 2 estimate versions. Okay, so that's another one where you compare 2 estimates side by side. Then you have the multiple estimate comparison, which allows you to compare up to 10 estimates side by side. And any of these reports can be sent to Excel, so that if you want to create a bar chart or a pie chart or something like that and review the results, the analysis, with your team or with a project manager or something like that, or the senior estimator, that's perfect. that really helps your conversation. It helps you show what you changed from one estimate to another. Okay, and that's it. That's all I've got for you today. I'm going to go ahead and put my contact information up on the screen. If you would like, you can reach out to me by email. If you have an account manager that got you into this webinar, first of all, thank them for getting you into this webinar. Just kidding. But also, ask them if for pricing and anything like that. Ask them the additional questions that you might have. They, of course, will come to me, but you will have a key point of contact from there. And of course, I might be your key point of contact, so I might be reaching out to you anyway. So if you have any questions at all, now is the time to ask. Otherwise, you are free to go. Thank you so much for your attention.